Well, good afternoon. We are honored to be joined today by all four corners of the Senate and House Agriculture Committees. Each of these leaders are committed to strengthening agriculture in rural America, and I am looking forward to this discussion of issues of importance to all of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman John Boozman of Arkansas.
Senator.
Senate Agriculture Committee Ranking Member Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota.
Thank you, Senator.
House Agriculture Committee Chairman G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania. And House Agriculture Committee Ranking Member Angie Craig of Minnesota.
Thank you, Angie. Well, before we get started, we've had a loss in our farmer family of a congressman that served here in Northern California. Doug LaMaffa was a good friend of agriculture, and he was a good friend of California Farm Bureau and American Farm Bureau. I don't know that I ever came to this wonderful state that Doug wasn't there to greet me and talk to me. And every time I went to the Capitol Hill, when there was something discussed about agriculture, Doug was there and was talking to me. He was a true friend of the California farmer and a true friend of American Farm Bureau and the American farmer. I'd like to take this moment and take a moment of silence and remember him and his family and honor him. So join with me, please. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. We'll keep praying for the family in the area that he covered in North California. On behalf of all the farmers and ranchers here today and all across this country, I know they all join me in saying thank you to you four. Y'all take time out of your life not only to serve your state and our country, but you're serving agriculture in such an honorable way, and we really do appreciate it. Now, we just have 30 minutes, and we have a lot we could talk about. We probably could stay here and talk for hours, but we won't torture you that long. So we're going to jump right into it. As we all know, the farmers and ranchers have had a challenging 2025, and we've seen some record high cost of putting the crop in, with record low prices that we're receiving for our commodities. Really and truly, this is the most expensive crop we ever put in the ground, and it's been a difficult time. We've been grateful for all y'all's efforts and the short-term relief that we've received, and we're looking forward to a new modernized farm bill, finishing that up. What are we'd love to ask you the questions, what are some of your legislative priorities in 2026 that are going to help farmers and rural communities across the country? And I'm going to start with you, Chairman Boozman.
Well, I think you mentioned a big one to start. We were able to, in the big bill, create a situation where we were able to help with the risk management tools that we all desperately needed to update. Also several other things that are so important to agriculture to the tune of about $68 billion. So we've gotten a majority of the Farm Bill passed. Now we need to come back and finish that up. And so I'd like to work and get that done very shortly. Things like loan limits, these things don't cost a lot of money. We got most of the cost drivers done. but now we've got to get things that help rural America, quality of life issues, and again, loan limits, things, get them where they work now with the inflationary period that we've had. The other thing that I'd very much like to do, in working with Senator Klobuchar, who's truly a great partner and a good friend, is we've got to figure out a path forward. We've got to get ourselves in a situation. Congress is stepping in and being helpful. I think they're going to continue to do that, but we can't depend on it. We've got to get ourselves in a situation where agriculture is sustainable. And so I'd like to have a couple hearings, bringing in the experts, bringing in you, the people that work at this all day, every day, telling us what you need, telling us the tools you need in the toolbox, whether it's trade, figuring out a way to better use the products that we have here in our country, increasing domestic demand, value-adding products, the list goes on and on. So again, I think those are probably the two of the most important as we go forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ranking Member.
Thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. We have a lot going on in Minnesota right now. I think you know that, so I just came in and out for this today, in part because the Farm Bureau has been such a strong advocate for a lot of things that I believe in, and my hope that we can make some advances this year. I had a lot of fun with Zippy flipping pork chops at Farm Fest in Minnesota. And now I somehow have figured out that we have found a place that is more surreal than Washington, D.C., Disneyland, where you guys are. And when I look at it, I'd agree with some of John's points on what we could get done with the Farm Bill. I actually would love to see a year-round E15 and some of the work we could do on that front, that because of the procedural rules that they couldn't get done in some of the other bills, or we couldn't get done, I think that would be a really good thing. Some reform on ag labor. I think we all know how hard this has been hitting our farmers. And I think that I've always been in favor of we've had a number of bipartisan ag immigration bills. I know that's not an easy word to say right now in our country, but we know there are a lot of ways we could go to try to make sure that we have a stable workforce when it comes to agriculture as well as other areas. That's something, it feels far away, but I think it's such a need right now. There's a possibility we could move on that. Raising the farm loan limits, Senator Hoeven and I have a bill on that could be included in some kind of a package. Improvements that we know with CRP. Senator Thune is now our majority leader, and I've worked on that for a long time. Biomanufacturing, I kind of think of all these things that we could do that are a little more policy-oriented, that could go with some funding that I think would be helpful, as well as looking at SNAP and some changes that we can make there. I do think that reversing the tariffs would be about the best thing that we could do. One person can clap. We're waiting the court case on this front, and I was there. I got to be at the Supreme Court to watch that, and I think it's very soon. But there's a chance, given the law, that they would be overturned. Now, then we're going to have to figure out how we adjust for that and make some of these payments and the like. I think that would be good long term. If that doesn't happen, I hope the administration will back down on some of them for the sake of input costs and for the sake of the markets overseas and the like, or we can pass something in Congress. So those are the things, if I could have a perfect year in terms of ag policy, some of the things I'd like to see, in addition to the understanding that this has been a really tough year. As one of my farmers called it, a perfect storm of ugly, between the tariffs and the input costs and the markets drying up and some of these other things that have been going on. And small farms have been really hit by it hard. And so that's what really makes me want to get something done this year with our remaining time in a place that can be, as I said, surreal as Disneyland, where I get to go and have fake snow come on me when I can actually get real snow in Minnesota. So in any case, it really means a lot to be here with my friends, and I mean this really, not fake friends, with Angie and GT and my partner in the Senate, John Boozman. So thank you.
Chairman Thompson.
Well, Zippy, let me just say, as someone who's been a Farm Bureau member for 30 years now. I'm just proud to belong to the greatest grassroots organization in the world, and that's the American Farm Bureau. Well, good stuff. And you know, and I think that it's hard to look at the future with just reflecting on the past. You know, what we were able to do in Farm Bill 1.0 really predated long before the One Big Beautiful Bill. It came with the travel that we did around the country. We did in a bipartisan way. We had ideas from both sides of the aisle, and it was reflected in what we passed back in 2024 out of the House committee. And you know, I don't think there was a better bipartisan constructed bill at that point. And you all were a part of that because we did it in a tripartisan way, bringing it to the table. So using that momentum going forward, we really need to get at least what I refer to as Farm Bill 2.0 done. You know, we were able to make significant investment, historic investment in agriculture with what we did on trade and animal health and bringing down the cost of crop insurance and safety net. But there's more left to be done. You know, that 20% of investment that we need to do that's left, it's about 80% of the policies, and it's so important. So we need to do that. We need to do agriculture labor. It is time to break that gridlock that we've had since the 1980s. We're counting on our friends in the Senate to get something with digital commodities across the finish line. That's in our jurisdiction as well. We're proud of the fact that we were able to do that in a bipartisan way, along with the grain standards, and not exactly coming out of our committee, but really pushed by our committee. Whole milk for healthy kids.
That was.
Yeah, we're looking for.
Should have mentioned it before you.
Yeah, looking forward to President Trump signing that. Hopefully this coming week, we'll see.
Good.
Ranking Member Craig.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. And I don't know, Senator, I think Disney is a lot of fun, and Washington isn't that much fun these days. So glad to be here. Look, I want to say, the Farm Bill 2.0, skinny Farm Bill, whatever we're calling it these days, we absolutely need to finish the job. Crop insurance reference prices got taken care of in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but we need to make sure that farm credit, rural development, those things are taken care of as well. So I do hope that we can come to a bipartisan consensus on those two things. The other thing that wasn't raised that I want to say, though, is with high input cost, low commodities prices, with a global trade war, the $12 billion in farm relief that was just announced isn't nearly enough to make up for the losses in this country. And so, particularly specialty crop growers, I know among the group here we had some commodities that feel like you're winners, you're losers, whatever. But as the granddaughter of a farm foreman from Arkansas, John, you know that. So Minnesota and Arkansas is heavily covered up here. My grandfather lost his job in the 1980s farm crisis when the farmer lost the farm. And I have never forgotten that in my work on the Ag Committee, that's what we have as a responsibility to figure out. We need more export markets in this country. I was a bane in the side of the Biden administration on this point. We need more domestic markets in this nation. And so I'm going to be looking for year-round E15, higher blends of ethanol, sustainable aviation fuel. We have to be thinking about that. And it's not in our jurisdiction, but we haven't brought up the cost of health care in this country. And I just want to say, with 27% of farmers and ranchers across this country on some sort of Affordable Care Act plan today, the cost of health care is out of control, and we got to figure out how we deal with it in this country.
Well, thank y'all, and I know all four of you have heard me say this before because I've talked to all four of you multiple times, but the number one issue as I travel the country and visit with these members out here is the lack of labor. And a couple of you have mentioned it, and I know it's difficult. We all know it's difficult, and the politics around it is really difficult, but we really need to find a fix. Could you speak to how we, as an organization and as grassroots leaders, how we could come together and get something over the finish line, knowing that once we do speak to this issue and get something done, we might not ever get to touch it for another decade or two.
Right. Well, I think, should I?
Yes.
I've been involved in these efforts from way back as a new senator with Senator Lindsey Graham. You're going way back zone to John McCain. George Bush wanted to get this done at the end, couldn't get it over the finish line. That was a bigger bill. Then we go to Obama, waited till the end, didn't get it done. Then we get to Trump won, and Mike Rounds led a big effort that I was part of, a compromise effort. And I just think the time has come to get this done. Michael Bennett has a bill that I'm a co-sponsor of that would fix the H-2A visa program and make sure that we have year-round visas, that we are doing something on wage certainty, protecting the existing workforce. Just think of what we could do if we looked at it and said, okay, we've worked on securing the border, and so now let's just look at some of these areas where we really need help. And it includes ag, that's not the only one, healthcare, hospitality, some of these other areas, and be smart about how we do this. We have recently worked on these TN visa applications. I worked for a bunch of our farmers on that. I cannot believe, and Angie brought up the specialty crops, where this is so key, because you're already facing what I think you need more funding, a higher proportion, I'll say, as does some of our other crops, out of the recently awarded money, which we truly appreciate. But I think we need to go beyond that and look at the labor shortages when it comes to specialty crops as well, which is just it's a potential growing area for us for exports and the like. So I'm not giving up on immigration reform. I just went to a 3-hour meeting with some very conservative House members on this, as well as others that find common ground. So when you're making the grassroots case, you've got to make that economic case. I just think that is the case to make about how we want to feed the world, we want to have strong businesses, and to do that, we need a smart immigration system that allows for workers, and that we cannot equate all the time border policy, which must be secure, with the economic needs of our farmers and ranchers. So go out there and make that case, because I think it's getting so difficult right now that we sometimes, when the things are worse, you find a opening, and we've got to find that opening now.
Chairman Thompson, I know you did a lot of work within your committee last year. Would you tell us what you think?
Sure. Well, you know, recently, Zippy, there was a farmer that testified, and he talked about how a decade ago the H-2A program really saved him. And unfortunately, what he said is the H-2A program, as it stands today, is probably going to put him out of business. It's just not working. And we recognized that back in the 118th Congress. Under the rules of the House, I was able, you know, we have 6 subcommittees, but I was able to form a task force, a work group, and we did that. And we did it in a very bipartisan way. It was equal members, and in fact, two co-chairs. A Democratic member, Dawn Davis from North Carolina, and Rick Crawford from Arkansas, and really brought producers and processors to the table to find out what was working and what wasn't working. Because if you don't have workforce, you have food insecurity, and if you have food insecurity, you have national insecurity. And they did a great job. And if you want to see the outcome of what they did, if you just go on the House Agriculture website, and there's 2 reports there. One's interim. You read that if you want to, but I would skip to the final report. It has the 21 recommendations that came out of this. What do we have? About 16 members on this task force. 15 of those were unanimous, and so we have taken those to Legislative Council. We'd have probably been a little further ahead if we didn't have that goofy month-and-a-half shutdown, because we lost access to all the Department of Labor experts to give us technical assistance. Well, they're back, and we're just about finished up with that. Now, and a point that I'm really excited about, one of those 16 members is now the Secretary of Labor. Secretary Chavez DeRemer was a member of Congress, and and a member of the Agriculture Committee, and so we're finishing up with that version. with technical assistance, and then we're going to put it out for a discussion draft. Because I really think it's important that the different organizations, such as Farm Bureau and other agriculture organizations, put their eyes on it to make whatever suggestions or recommendations for refinement. And looking forward here in this first quarter of this year of getting that introduced and strong bipartisan document. I wish it would run through the Agriculture Committee, but and I probably will ask the speaker, but I know what he's going to say. It's got to go through Judiciary. But I've already had a discussion with the Judiciary Committee. The biggest thing, and I think the senator reflected on it, why people always told us in the past we couldn't do something because the border wasn't under control. Now, I would argue that the border's always been under control. It was just under control by the cartels previously. And today, it's under control of the United States of America. And so that excuse is gone. And I think Judiciary, I don't want to speak on behalf of the chairman, but I think they're ready to entertain some serious work out of the House.
Ranking Member?
I would just add, most definitely Chairman Thompson is right. There's some good bipartisan work, particularly around H-2A, particularly around workforce and TN visa. Farm Modernization Act certainly was not perfect, but some elements I think you're going to see incorporated into that bipartisan work. The challenge, I will tell you, being from Minnesota right now, we have a number of Homeland Security actions underway in the state of Minnesota. I got a text a couple days ago from one of my dairy farmers, and ICE agents were sitting at a gas station near the dairy farm, and people didn't want to come to work. Whether they were legal immigrants or not, they don't want to come to work because they fear in this environment right now. So we have to have a safe and secure border. That's absolutely the case in this country. And at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, are we a nation where immigrants want to come and be in and work and feel like they can be part of a contribution to America? Do we want them here? And my concern is that this administration at times does not act like they actually want immigrant labor here in the United States of America. And we all know that we need them in this sector of the economy and many, many others.
Chairman Boozman?
Well, first of all, it makes me jealous that you've been to Minnesota flipping things. We want you to come to Arkansas where you can flip pancakes or bacon or whatever.
I can do it.
Yeah, I bet. So I think everything's really been said. This is such an important issue. I visited with many of you in your states. I visited with many of you in Washington. And I don't think I've ever visited with an ag group that one of the first things that came up wasn't labor. Yeah. We said that we couldn't do that because the border was not secure, and it wasn't secure. It was just the opposite of that. We've worked hard. It is secure now. Then you go about through visa programs. You control the flow, but it's time to do that. And so I think we've got a great story to tell. H-2A is not working. The wage issues and all of that, perhaps we can get that done short term. We need massive reform. And the good news is on both sides of the aisle, I think that we are getting that message because of your all's hard work. As I said, I don't think I visited with a farm group that didn't bring this up and explain why it was hurting their particular role in agriculture.
It's the biggest limiting factor we have, and our young people can't come back to the farm or start into farming business just because they can't find the labor to help them do that, and we have to find a solution. And I will share with you, I know y'all have a lot more opportunities to visit with the president than I do, but this is one issue I think he understands and really wants to find a solution to it. I've told our people that probably the first time in history we got a president that's sensitive to that issue and wants to find a solution. And with y'all's forward leadership and him wanting to do that, I think we can find a solution to it, and we need to do it and do it fast. So we appreciate the work that y'all are going to do on that. I will tell you to keep one thing in mind. There are a lot of really good people that's been here a long time on a lot of farms across America that are undocumented.
Right.
that have abided by the laws, maybe with the exception of the one of coming here without a legal permit. And they are ingrained in our communities and in our farms, and that's going to be the difficult spot, and we all know it, but they need some attention. They need some attention. So for closing remarks, we have about 8 minutes left. I'd love for each one of you to have a chance to say some closing remarks. This is about 4,500 members that are representing our 6 million members across the country, and our livelihoods really depend heavily on what y'all are capable to do and working together. And it's such a good feeling to know that all 4 of y'all agreed to come sit in front of the largest general farm organization in the country, and sit here and talk about your wishes and desires to do for rural American agriculture. So in closing remarks, I'd like for you to speak to our membership.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much. We're kind of the tip of the spear, but we simply can't get things done without the grassroots. Nobody does a better job than you do. You're tremendously respected. You're not only active in Farm Bureau, but many of you are leaders in all of the different commodity groups, whether it's specialty or poultry or whatever, in your different organizations. Agriculture can do a tremendous amount, and because of your help, we've done that. I was in North Dakota with Senator Hoeven at a round table, and a lady looked at me and said, "Senator, we need more farm in the Farm Bill." And because of your help, we've been able to do that. We're going to get even more farm in the Farm Bill, which I think is very, very important. I would encourage you to continue to build your coalitions. We can argue about little things in the future. Right now, ag has to stick together. A good example of that would be last year when we were working really hard to get the $10 billion in aid and the $21 billion in disaster relief. $31 billion or so is a tremendous amount of money. You all came up, agriculture came up, made your case to Congress. We worked hard. One of the deciding factors were the community bankers, the lenders across the board, came up and said, instead of criticizing each other and worried about, this and that, their message was farmers need help. And that was a big help in getting us again with the coalition. So we're committed to helping you any way we can, but thank you. The progress that we've been able to do in large part has been because of you and the rest of agriculture working so very hard to educate your members about the importance. As Marco Rubio told me, punched me as we were in a meeting, food security is national security. We got a great story to tell. We just need to continue to tell it, and in the process, get additional aid as we go forward in the next few weeks.
Ranking Member Klobuchar.
Thank you for being advocates, because you're also advocates for people that maybe aren't able to come out to this meeting, or they're just basically close to making it right now, and they need you very much. I want to thank Dan Glessing, the head of our Minnesota Farm Bureau. Where are you, Dan? I wonder where Minnesota is seating. It's like a Viking game over there. So the point of it is that Dan has had me to so many Farm Bureau farms, and that's made a big difference for me, and I know for Angie. I have learned so much from doing that. I've been at just this last fall, I went on an 8-farm tour along the Canadian border, and I found myself late at night eating someone's homemade cheese, dairy cheese, and and also cattle was there. It was unbelievable, but they had it was hunting season, Angie, and they had this nice buffet underneath the deer carcasses that were hanging in the barn, and it was one of the most memorable visits I've had. So I think some of this is getting some of the members, congressional members, legislators, governors, out and inviting them and not letting politics get in the way, right? There are things so much bigger than what divides us right now, right? And courage and getting things done is about standing with people you don't always agree with for the betterment of your country and the betterment of rural areas right now. And on the Democratic side, I always have to find all kinds of ways to bring people in to our ag coalition. Sometimes it's some of the CRP, the conservation programs, sometimes it's nutrition programs and the like, and just keeping your eyes open to those things I think is really important. And then last thing, you know, if you're really hard up, just throw in some of those Farm Bureau Dogs of the Year. Goose, Max. I will never forget when I was the DA, we'd have to give our budget presentation to the county board. I'd have every figure number, everything else. And the sheriff would get up and he'd just show the sheriff's dogs. And they'd all go, whatever you need, you know, whatever you need. But thank you for caring about our country, because food, people have to understand food does not magically show up on people's plates. You make it and you produce it, and let's have your backs.
Chairman Thompson.
Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you. Many of you we've spent time with in your home states as we've traveled around preparing for this farm bill, and your hospitality. And you got to love agriculture, because no matter where we're at it, there was somebody that wanted to take us into their home and feed us.
Yes.
You know, it's just neighbors. It's a family when it comes to agriculture, and Amy's going to force me to do that. I love all of our state Farm Bureau presidents, but I got to give a shout out to my favorite hog farmer, Chris Hoffman. Chris is former Hog Farmer of the Year, and a good guy in the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. You know, there's a saying I learned, BC, and that could either stand for before Congress or before children. And that is if you, when it comes to public policy, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And it is so important that you all have been at the table. And I encourage you to stay there, because I want you to think about what's at risk if you step away from the table of public policy. We're looking at the decay of America's #1 industry, which is agriculture. We're looking at food insecurity. You know, we're looking at devastating impacts on the environment, because our farmers and our ranchers are the original conservationists. There's just, you know, economic ruin if we allow that. But if you stay at the table and we work as a farm team, we're going to continue to deliver great things for America's #1 industry, which is agriculture.
Well, Amy stole my shout out to Dan, so I'm going to say thank you to the entire Minnesota Farm Bureau. I also just want to say, if you're a Democrat, there are about 50 House of Representative members from California. So being here in California is terrific, and if I don't talk about specialty crops when I'm in California, I can't go back to Washington and see my colleagues. Let me end with just this. We got a lot of work left to do. Some of it is really hard work in a very difficult political environment. And so what I think about is what all of you can do to be most helpful to us. Number one, when you come to Washington to advocate to us and our staffs, tell your personal story. You know, when you come and you talk about issues, that's one thing, but for me and for a lot of us, just hearing about your 4th generation farm, just hearing about the challenges you're having on your farm, it really means a lot, and we remember that when we are in these policy discussions. Number two, go see people that you don't necessarily normally go see. Don't just go to one side of the aisle. Don't just go to people who represent rural communities in the Congress, because we need everybody to understand how important the work you do to feed, fuel this world, clothe this world is to America. So again, thank you, and it's an honor to be with you.
You know, I couldn't have bribed them to say what they just said any better, because you know, I talk a lot about telling your story. Your personal story is so valuable. It's the most valuable tool we have in our toolbox as an organization. And two, opening your farm up. Just like the senator said, open up your farm and let people come and see what you really do. And you can change their minds and change our lives. And then, of course, make sure you continue to stay engaged. But not just yourself, the rest of your family and all the members of Farm Bureau in your counties. We have to get more and more engagement. You see from these 4 great Americans that we have a great chance to make some important decisions for agriculture in 2026. And when we do it, it will be because of the hard work of the 4 people that's in front of us. Let's give a big Farm Bureau thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, twin.
All right.
Keep taking care of yourself.